So we've the last couple weeks we've celebrated moms, we've celebrated graduates, and as I put together our sermon schedule and kind of our teaching times and what Sundays would look like, I found this void being this weekend, and I went, okay, well, we're going to start this new series called Rooted and Grounded, I don't really want to start that on a holiday weekend because, well, holiday weekend people are camping and doing stuff, and I really want to save that till next week. So I kind of went back and forth about what this Sunday should look like, and I really just felt this was going to be what I'm calling our one-off Sunday. This is the Sunday that before we start the summer series and diving into that, but at the end of the celebration times of grads and moms, and I don't know, we'll worry about dads later. I don't know if we ever get to them. But right, like we go through all these different things, and I went, I just really have this idea for this one-off Sunday, and what does this look like? And I really just kind of landed on a Sunday just to share a little bit of my heart, share a little bit of what is going on. And so as I was preparing for this entire Sunday, the sermon, this was one of those sermons. It was, I knew what I wanted to talk about, and when it came to the worship, and I just sat there, and normally I text Shayna, and we go back and forth about songs, and this is what the sermon's going to be about. What do you think? And this week I went, nope, we're just going to send these two songs. And I said, Shayna, these are the two songs we want to do. I want to play a Holderness video at the beginning because I feel like September, when you're running around, like that just speaks to me. And then those two songs are two songs that are kind of my go-to songs when I'm just feeling like distraught, when I'm feeling like, God, where are you right now? Those are the two songs that I go to. That Stars song was the first song that we ever sang at one church on the first Sunday, because that was really just my cry out to God in those moments where I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to face? And I just really just went, this Sunday is going to be a day to just be vulnerable, to be honest, but to also just share what God is doing and how cool God is and the fact that he has us in the middle of those things. So first of all, I need to back up and let you know that and I shared a couple weeks ago this, but the last about 2 months has been just crazy, between busy with sports and everything, but also there was just situations that kept coming up. And I've been blessed that I have a mentor, a coach that has been coaching me, and I've been going through on pastoring, and it actually is my college pastor, and it's been really neat to reconnect with him and to walk through a few things of how to do this church stuff and how to, as a church plant, and what we should be facing, and I can ask him all sorts of questions. And I was talking to him about this one-off Sunday, and he was the one that really encouraged me just to be vulnerable, to be honest, and to share, because the last 2 months has just been one of those where it just feels like one thing after another. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that ever has those, and those moments where just one thing happens, another thing happens, you're like, okay, I'm back on my feet, and then another thing happens, I'm back on my feet, another thing, and it just feels like over and over. As much so as when I was having lunch with a friend and I was sharing with him, I said, it just, none of these things that I'm going to share today are really that big of a deal. But when it's thing after thing after thing, you just kind of are like, can I have a break here? Right? Like, and again, if this is me just preaching to myself to make myself feel better, thanks for just sitting here today and listening to me as I share. But my hope is that maybe you've been in the middle of that. And it was just dumb stuff, like situations with somebody that I was just really frustrated, and you want to control other people and the way that they do stuff, and it makes no sense to you, and why would they do that, and they hurt your feelings, and you're just broken, and you sit there, and then you see it through your kids' eyes where they're hurt and broken, and you're like, okay, you can hurt and break me, but don't do that to my kids, or to my wife's eyes, and I'm like, don't you, now the husband is coming out where I'm like, I want to punch you in the face, and I don't know how to do that in a pastoral way. Like, I don't know, do I use my left hand and pull the punch? Like, what does that look like? Like, you have all of these struggles, and you're going back and forth, and it just felt so heavy. It felt so heavy where I was like, questioning, like, God, am I even supposed to do this? Like, and you have those moments of doubt, and you're like, no, I can do this. Like I get it, God, and you circle back around, you get back on your feet, and then something else happens. And then you tell somebody, right? Like you ever have that conversation with somebody where you're telling them your problems and their look in their face is like, are you kidding me? That's your problem? And you're like, no, you got to understand, like thing after thing after thing, and you're emotional, you're a wreck. You can't even tell the whole story, and you don't want to share the whole story because you feel bad telling the whole story. And I really thank so many people and so many friends that reached out that didn't know all of the parts of stories, but just reached out and prayed or talked to me through or said, hey, I'll punch them for you, because then you don't have to worry about that as a pastor. I appreciate all of those things, and and it comes down to as I was kind of coming out of that moment, and it was very fitting because we're going to, the Bible in a year, we were kind of reading through some stuff that was really hitting me. And so we bring it to last week, and it got magnified by the fact that and I appreciate all the positive comments and people that said, oh yeah, that sermon really meant a lot, but it really got magnified by like 3 weeks in a row. I felt like what I was trying to say on Sunday morning wasn't coming out of my mouth. And I was sitting there even one of the Sundays, and don't go back and watch them now, but one of the Sundays I shared something, and I in my head went, oh crap. I just shared point 3 and I haven't shared point 1 or 2. How do I get back to point 1 and 2? This sermon's not going to make sense, and people are going to say you're an idiot, and what? Like, how do you, like you just live in that emotion. So I was going after that, and last week, Jackson was playing in a championship game. My wife was with him, and we finished out here, and I just went, like I had that moment where I'm like, oh, I didn't celebrate the grads like I really wanted to, right? Like I just, those lies that go through your head. And we get in the car, and I'm like, Isabel, we have to go, we want to go catch your brother's game. And she's just, yeah, okay, we do this all the time. So we get in Jamie's car, and I'm like, listen, we have to go. And I'm thinking, what's the best way to get over to Mount Pleasant? And I turn on the air conditioning, because last Sunday was hot as blazes, right? And I turn on the air conditioning, and I'm like, oh, it's blowing hot air. I'm like, you have to be kidding me, God. Like, literally, I'm working on being a better Christian. I'm working on being and not complaining, and now I don't even have air conditioning. Do I turn around and take the Jeep? No, I can't do that. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, I guess we're doing windows. And I'm just snarky, and I'm feeling bad, and Isabel's sitting by me, and she's just going, and we're driving down M20, and I'm like, okay, stop complaining. This is a great life. Things are going well, and this is not that big of a deal. You grew up without air conditioning. You are okay. You can put your window down. You complained about how cold it is. Just enjoy it. So I put the window down, and we're going down the road, and I look over at my daughter, and Isabel is going, like, laughing hysterically. And I'm like, what? And she's trying to hold it in, and she has this empathetic look, but also just laughing. And I turn, and all down the side of the car, all down the side of my face, all down the side of my shirt is bird crap. And I'm like, I'm not talking like, this picture is like a little bit, like, I'm like, my glasses are covered in it. And I turn back at Isabel, and she's just like, and I go, it's not funny. She goes, I know it's not funny. What does your mom have in the car to clean this up? Well, she has disinfectant wipes. Hand them to me. So I'm like, went through an entire container of disinfectant wipes, like disinfecting my face, all this stuff. And then she looks and goes, but Dad, it says only for interior of cars. I don't care, honey. Like, and then I'm kind of laughing because the joke's on other people, because people are like saying hi and shaking my hand when we get to the game, and I'm like, if only you knew, I was covered in bird crap. Like, right? But I just sit there and I'm like, okay, life just does that. You think everything is fine, and life just throws you this where you're like, I have nothing to do. And I finally, and the truth of the matter is, honestly, backing up, I looked at Isabel and I went, yeah, you're right, it's funny. And we both laughed for, about 10 minutes in the car, just going, your dad's covered in bird crap. And now we have a pile of used whatever wipes covered. But right, like, that's what happens. And again, it's only fitting because I'm sitting there and I'm like, yes, a bird crapped on me going well, I won't say how fast I was going on M20, but like, and it comes in and is that the end of life? No, it's not. It's not even, we still got to the game. We still had fun. We laughed about it. But then in the weekly reading was the book of Job. And if you know the book of Job, you have to understand, Job is first and foremost, he was a great man. It says that he refused to do any wrong. He was rich, and everything was going smoothly for Job. And then a conversation happens between God and Satan. And Satan is talking to God, and he says, listen, Job is so powerful of a man. Job is such an amazing man because you've blessed him so much. And God looks at Satan and says, you know what? Fine. I trust Job. I know Job. You don't know Job. So here's the deal. You can take away all those things from Job. You just can't hurt him. And just like that, the story goes in Job that one of his servants comes up to Job and says, hey, all of your oxen and all of your donkey, they're gone. They've been destroyed. All your servants are dead. They've been dead. Like, we can't continue on. I barely got out of it. And Job's like, okay. And another servant comes running up and goes, listen, Job, all of your sheep, all of your servants, those from over here are now dead. And I got to believe Job is like, okay, really, God? One more, knocked down? And he sits there, and by no time at all, another servant comes up and says, now, Job, I barely made it out. All of your servants and all your camels, they're gone. So all of your riches are gone. And Job must have been reeling in his mind. And then a fourth servant comes up. And you ever have those moments where you're like, I don't want to talk to you because the last three are really bad, right? So the fourth servant comes up and says, I barely made it out. But you need to know that all of your wealth, all of your family, they're gone, your children. So Job does where he shaves his head, he tears his clothes, and I got to believe everybody, like, rightfully looked at Job and went, okay, he's going to get mad, he's going to curse God, like everything is taken away. But instead what Job does is Job says, God gave me everything, and for some reason it's okay. And I trust you, God, in the middle of this. And the book of Job continues on where God and Satan has another conversation, and Satan, says, well, da-da-da-da-da, and God goes, fine, you can't kill him, but you can hurt him. And he's covered in boils, and Job's friends come alongside and say, curse God. Job's wife comes and says, curse God. Whatever you've done, just curse God and call this over. But instead, Job trusted. He started to lose heart, but he trusted and he worshiped God. And the story of Job ends with the fact that everything was given plus more. Job's life at the end was better because he trusted God. So there's 4 parts of Job and 4 scriptures that I want to read to you that you need to understand. In the middle of my little 2 months of nothingness compared to what Job went through, that you need to remember when you feel like you're being attacked over and over again, and you feel like, why is this happening, or you're just doubting, you need to understand that those things, first of all, Job was blameless. The first part in Job 1:1, in the land of Uz there lived a man whose name was Job. The man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He was blameless. The first biggest lie that happens in your own head and other people will tell you is when bad things happen and crappy things happen and overall happens, you start to go, what did I do wrong? God doesn't work that way. There is sin, there's evil in this world. God does not work in the way of punishing you because you've done something wrong. It's a lie that happens over and over. That just because all this bad stuff has happened, and I've shared this story, one of my, before, and I apologize if you've heard me share it, but it's so important to know. One of my good friends, Bob, he had Parkinson's, and he went through a lot of stuff, and I loved, Bob was one of those guys that took care of me when I was little. I would go over to his house, we'd joke around, and I remember after Bob got Parkinson's, and I was in 18 years old, 19 years old, and I was there in his room, and I was talking to him, and in came a pastor. And his pastor looked at Bob and said, what sin do you have in your life? What are you doing wrong? Because you need to repent of that to get rid of this Parkinson's. And I remember just going, at 18, 19, going, you need to shut up, pastor. Right? Like I was so angry I had to leave the room. It doesn't work that way. A relationship with God doesn't work that way. Things can happen to you and you can still be blameless. You can still be honoring God. It doesn't work that way. The second thing that is important to understand, that in the middle of all this, Job struggled. What strength do I have that I should still hope? What prospects that I should be patient? He's sitting there and he's doubting. He's talking, crying out to God. He's struggling. And I want you to understand that in those moments, it's okay to struggle. One of the hardest things for me was in the middle of that season that we came out of, for my wife to tell people and ask people that I found out later to literally go, you need to know that John's struggling. And that was a really hard thing because Jamie said, don't be mad at me, but I was mad. Like, I don't want people to know that I'm struggling. I want to tough it out. I want to work through it. But it was because she was able to do that people were able to help me walk out of that and see the truth. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to get frustrated with God and look at that situation and go, I don't understand why you're doing this. It makes no sense. God, why? Why? What hope do I have to cry out to him? But also, if you understand that you struggle, it's okay to know that you are protected. The Lord said to Satan, very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. Then Satan went away the presence of the Lord. To understand that part, you are protected. God protects you. I don't understand how all this evil, I don't understand how things don't work out, right? Like a week and a half ago now, Jamie and I lost a friend of ours. One day she was washing toys at a car wash, the big tight toy, whatever car things, and she had a brain aneurysm. Makes no sense to us at 53 years old, just like that. Makes no sense. Follower of God, she was passionate, she was working on her faith. I don't understand why in the hurt and the heartache and the things that of going to that funeral and understanding and people going, why did that happen? I don't understand. But I know that we're protected. And I got to see it in her husband and her daughter's eyes, that they felt protected and they understood that God still loved them even though this tragic thing happened. And I got to see friends come alongside, even though this tragic thing happened, to understand that we are protected, that you have a God, and that's the importance of our relationship. You have a God that loves you so much that you are protected by him. And the last one, only because I really like this word and my wife is going to laugh, vindicated. She just rolled her eyes like 17 times. Dashboard Confessional came out with that song Vindicated, and I just sang it all the time to her when we first started dating. So I didn't even know what it meant, but you're vindicated. I love this part. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. In the middle of that, in the middle of the storm, the Lord spoke to Job. The power that the story of Job, right? Like he went through all those things and he ended his story, he ended his life in a better place than before that. Because the Lord spoke to Job and helped him get out of the storm. There's a quote that I found that really kind of meant a lot as I was going through what I was going through. And it simply says, not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path. So right now you may be in the middle of a storm. You may be in the middle of that season, or if nothing else, hold this for those storms. Because if you're not right now, you will be in a storm sometime. I can promise you that. There's evil in this world. There's Satan in this world. There's things that come up, and you're going to feel like over and over and over again, you're going to get attacked. You're going to feel over and over like there was things that were happening to myself and my family of feeling attacked, but there was also things that I was just putting on my own shoulders that I didn't need to because I was so attacked. It just felt like more things were attacked, right? Like I joked with somebody this morning. They came up to me and said, "Hey, we need to have a talk." And that's just like a code in my head for, oh no, what went on? And it was something very fine and good and positive, right? But when those things happen, you're just so on guard to, how am I getting attacked now? Where am I failing now? Where am I messing up now? How have I fallen short in somebody else's eyes? How have I screwed this up any more than I already did? And you feel like you're caught over and over and over. And you need to understand, just like Job, he is going to help you and walk you. He's going to call out to you in the middle of that storm and be there for you, and to look for those ways. In the middle of those struggles that I had, of even conversations, right? Like I had a struggle. One of the things was I was having a struggle with somebody that I was so angry, and I joke about it, but my wife and others that know about it can probably attest. I really did want to punch the guy in the face. Like it was so over and over. And I just was like, God, I need your help. I need you to walk through that. But then as I look at the storm of that, I look at God calling me out of that and going, I need you to care. I need you to love. I need you to show him Christ. I need you to show him me in the middle of that, and calling out that path and understanding that. And when we do that, it becomes so much clearer, and you're like, okay, God, I get this. You have a step for me. So the illustration that I really want you to understand in the middle of this was, it was 2019 now. We went, one of my jobs when I was at the United Methodist Church was we'd go take the high schoolers on a spring break mission trip. And that year in the fall was Hurricane Florence, which I found very ironic because that's my mom's name. So, right, like, in Hurricane Florence hit North Carolina, hit that entire area. And after all the devastation, we as a youth group decided our spring break mission trip was we were going to go down there and help repair the Wilmington, that area. So I flew down earlier, everybody else, to kind of look at all the devastation and all the wreckage and just seeing this entire area. And we went up to this other area that we were going to spend most of the group was going to help out. And I talked to one of the guys, and he was showing me the water lines of 20 feet high. The church had water in, and he had showed me all these different areas. And I said, it's just crazy that a hurricane would do this. Like it's so, you're so far off the ocean. I mean, we're 30-minute drive from the ocean. And he's like, the hurricane was nothing. And I sat there and I said, okay, what do you mean? We're here fixing, I'm bringing 60 people here shortly to fix up hurricane. What do you mean the hurricane didn't do this? He said the hurricane was no big deal. The hurricane came in and it pushed away, and we went, okay, we're good. But then he goes, if you watch the news, Hurricane Florence went northwest, I have to think of my directions, of Wilmington and just sat there. And if you remember back, I mean, probably we've had our own tragedies, but if you look back, it just sat, and it got caught in a front and just sat and sat and sat. And he said it wasn't till about 8 to 10 days later that all of that water came down off the mountains and just stopped right here in our neighborhood. All of that rain, all of that water came in that damage. And he sat there and he said, it wasn't the hurricane, it was the after effect, because we were just here. In the middle of my own hurt and my own pain and my own, I just thought of this. And if nothing else today, I want you to understand this. Staying in the storm is when we cause the most damage. Staying in that hurt, staying there is when that damage, right? Just like that hurricane, when that water keeps coming and coming and coming, when you stay there, that's when the damage is caused. Those hills and valleys, those situations that we face, the last 2 months of my life, if I stayed in that anger, that's where my damage was going to be for myself and for other people. But it was me stepping out of that and going, okay, you don't call me to stay here, God. You call me to so much more. You call me to be Christ-like. You call me to do this. You bring friends into my life to have conversations with, to help me realize these, staying there and staying put. So if you're in the middle of a situation like this where something is controlling you, your anger is controlling you, your frustration, or you just feel like, I just want to catch a break, understand and take a step towards God. Reach out to people. Ask for help. Be like Job. Cry out to God because he's there for you. Don't just stay in the middle of that hurt. Don't just stay in the middle of that pain. Because God has so much more for you, for me, and for us as a community. Pray with me, won't you? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you again for today. Thank you for being a God that calls us out of the storm, that calls us not to stay put, but to calls us out, to not be there in the middle of our hurt, our heartache, and just as much as we want to curl up and cry and a ball, God, you call us to so much more. You call us to stand. You call us to come to you. You call us to something so countercultural that, God, you are there for us. Thank you for bringing friends, family, people just to love and to care for us in the middle of those storms. Thank you for those hurt and that heartache, because walking through those things have grown me and so many other people closer to you, God. May we take those hurts and be better. May you provide so much more because we're able to face that. God, we thank you for being a God that loves us and walks through those storms. It's in your name. Amen.